Well, there you go.
Welcome to the Mountain Time Zone.
That's right. I'm feeling a little higher already. And that was the first set of the fourth show of the Dead and Company 2022 Summer Tour, the first of two nights at the beloved Folsom Field in wonderful, hippie friendly Boulder, Colorado. And I know friends of mine are already having a great time down there. They landed in Boulder yesterday and went to see Melvin Seals and the JGV last night. The town becomes Deadhead Disneyland for a few days when events like this are happening, and it's
Very
really
much
a wonderful
so.
environment. But before
Yeah,
we
sure.
tell you, yeah, let's run down the first set, and then we'll tell people why we're here, perhaps.
All right. Well, we began with Bertha into Good Lovin', classic combo. New Speedway Boogie into Smokestack Lightning. Mr. Charlie, Ramble on Rose, with a little glitch in there toward the end. They Love Each Other, High Time, Thank You, O'Teal, and Let It
Mm.
Grow. And I felt like there was a little bit of a salute to Pigpen in there. Today being the 50th anniversary of the last time he went on stage with the Grateful Dead at Hollywood Bowl.
Yeah, the first set was very early 70s intensive until they got around to They Love Each Other. Well, that was early 70s in its original form. So uh, Let It Grow, I think, was the latest one to debut in the Grateful Dead set. So yeah, some
Yeah,
really
looking at that, that's very early 70s set here.
yeah,
Cool.
some really vintage stuff. Anyway, what we're doing right now is the halftime show. It is called Dead Air with Lambert and Gans. That's because I'm Lambert and he's Gans, and we are going to be here at halftime of every show on the Dead and Company tour, and are so delighted to be doing this. Part of the purpose is to run down the set list. Part of the purpose is to talk to a wonderful guest at each show, a different one at every show, and that'll be coming up in a moment. And part of our purpose is also to tell you how this is coming to you. This is through the amazing facilities of nugs.net, a company that is exclusively devoted, I think the only streaming service on the planet exclusively devoted to live music, either bringing you music live like this in the moment as it happens, and also enables you to watch it retroactively, and also they have an amazing library of recorded live music, which you can avail yourself of by subscribing on various levels. And there is a lot of Dead and Company. There is a lot of Grateful Dead family adjacent bands, Bob Weir and Wolf Bros, various others, a lot of great bands from what we call the jam band scene, but also artists like Bruce Springsteen and Pearl Jam and Wilco and so many others. If you go to nugs.net, you can get a look at what the roster is. It is thousands and thousands of pieces of music, and it is just tremendous.
You know, excuse me. Oh my goodness. You might also, if you're watching this live on YouTube right now, this could be read to you as an inducement to buy the stream. This once we finish yapping at you, they will play the first song or two of the second set as a sample of the amazing audio and video quality that nugs.net offers in these things. And you could convert this to a purchase of the stream, watch the entire second set, and then go back and watch the first set if you missed it. And then you have 48 hours to watch the whole thing a couple more times if you want to. And all of that is also available on nugs.net. You can subscribe to the entire Dead and Company tour. You can subscribe to the Dead and Company archives too. They got concerts going back to like 2016. Almost the entire history of this band is on nugs.net in various formats. And that too is worth exploring if you're interested.
That's right. And not only can you go back and watch this show, you can go back retroactively and watch other shows on the tour that you may have missed, other shows that Nugs still has archived by other artists that they are still making available for streaming. You can go back in time, or you can ensure that you're going to see this whole tour at your own pace if you buy the season pass. So there are so many ways to experience this music. And Nugs also has an arrangement with our other employer, SiriusXM Radio, by which if you subscribe to SiriusXM at a certain level, I think it's called the Platinum VIP or something fancy like that, it also allows you to have access to a large portion of the Nugs library, which, as I've said before, is massive. So if you are a
Yes.
live if you are a live music freak, and I suspect you are because you're tuned into this, nugs.net is really a great way to go, and we recommend it. And I was recommending it before they were paying me to say this.
Well, speaking of music freaks, let's bring our guest in. I'm
Oh,
really,
yes.
really happy to have this gentleman with us. He's one of my favorite human beings ever. We've been friends and colleagues for more than 40 years. In fact, I remember the day I met him in January of 1982 when I was on the Ozzy Osbourne tour. And he was right there in Boulder. We invited G to be with us today because he's a Colorado guy, and the Dead Company are in Colorado. So without further ado, please welcome G Brown to the proceedings.
Hi, guys.
G.
Hey, G.
And G is currently, I mean, when I met him, he was the music critic for the Denver Post, and he has a tremendous history as a music journalist. He is currently serving as the executive director of the Colorado Music Experience. Tell us what that's all about, G.
Just at this stage of life, I find myself being more of a historian than a reporter, I guess. More behind me than ahead of me. And wanted to get some of this stuff down. Colorado Music Experience is a nonprofit we founded dedicated to Colorado music history. We have podcasts and interview-based profiles and many documentaries and photo galleries, all in the service of chronicling the history of our fair state. So I'm real proud of the work, and people seem to like it. So I hope people will check it out. It's
I read your. What's that?
It's colomusic.org, COLOmusic.org. Thank you for the ability to plug that.
Absolutely.
You bet. I see and always share your posts on the social media and stuff. You have a lot of this day in history kind of stuff, and the Colorado connection of various people. And, you know, it's like, you might not think of Elton John as having a Colorado connection, but he recorded a couple of great albums in Colorado, right? That kind of thing.
3, and one of them, the gratefully titled Caribou.
That's right.
Well, there you go.
Done right up here outside of Nederland, Colorado.
Yeah, and G, you are really, you know, our go-to guy on Colorado music history all the time. And the Grateful Dead have a vast Colorado musical history. They played a free show in Town Park, or City Park rather, in Denver. I think one of the very first times they got off the West Coast. They went to Denver and played there for free. And this year we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of their first show at Folsom Field.
Their very first stadium show in Colorado was at Folsom. It was September of 1972. I was there. I was a freshman at the University of Colorado, and I confess I have no recollection of the set itself. I was more wowed by what was going on around me. I'm just a top 40 kid from Arvada, you know, taking in the STP family partying right in front of me. They were the methamphetamine folks that lived up in the foothills, and they were having a good time, and everything else going around there. If I can expound just for a moment, the show was memorable for 2 things. One, torrential rains, one of the greatest storms in Dead history by my reckoning. I can't imagine it raining any harder anywhere else. And also, sitting at the back of the Horseshoe at Folsom, that U-shaped stadium, had the vantage point to notice halfway through the set that there was this explosion at stage left, a geyser, if you will, of lids of pot, literally hundreds of them just exploding into the air. And we're trying to figure out what the heck's going on. And then moments later, the same thing happened stage right, another 500 lids of pot. They came with matches and papers in them. The band has always disavowed any knowledge of it. With David's help, I put together an oral history, if you will, of the show, people's recollections. One gentleman took credit for it. He was part of the Rough Riders, an organization. I'm not sure what their mission statement was, but they did manage to orchestrate this. He claims that they booked the Dead a couple of years prior. The UMC Ballroom is the smaller facility on the CU campus. He said for $800 they were able to book the Dead. But anyway, so many great stories. Some people swear to this day that the lids were dropped from a helicopter. Some people thought it was a flock of birds, and then they caught a bird. Oh, this is better. So many people just shared it. Supposedly, everything from the police force to certain military personnel taking issue with this circumstance, and one person of authority taking the stage, and Jerry ostensibly said, "You want to arrest 20,000 people? Go ahead, knock yourselves out." And yeah, just very memorable. So we wrote this oral history blog, and that'll encapsulate everything I'm relating here. But we're checking out. It's pretty funny. 50 years ago that transpired here. Great moment in Dead
And that's
history.
located at colomusic.org?
Yeah, just the lead blog at the moment. So
Great.
right there.
Now, speaking of Colorado's law enforcement issues with the Grateful Dead, there was a time at Red Rocks in 1984, which I happened to be at, which was noted for, among other things, the bust out of Dear Mr. Fantasy. I also remember a prodigious hailstorm at that time that damaged cars and shit. But there was also, as I recall, the police had put a portable substation under the stage to process all the hippies they were arresting at Red Rocks that weekend. Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah, they actually didn't have that exclusive to the Dead, thankfully. It was just kind of a police substation up there for a time, just to deal with ostensibly a first aid-ish kind of station for people that needed help. But holding cell was probably more accurate.
Whatever's gone down in history between then and now, it does seem like Boulder rolls out the red carpet for the Dead and the Deadheads. Every time I've come to that town in the last couple of years, it's been nothing but sweetness.
Yeah, well, yeah, in general, I hope since we're talking history and anniversaries and stuff, I'm making a sartorial statement here. I think you guys recognize this, right?
Indeed.
So, 92 years
That's right.
ago, the Dead's
Yeah.
endorsement of the Lithuanian Olympic basketball team. But I thought I'd make a little sports reference because congratulations to the NBA champion Golden State Warriors from the Dead's home turf and David's, right? And we allude to being here in Boulder for tonight and tomorrow night's shows, and Colorado is on fire with the Colorado Avalanche playing for the Stanley Cup. So what's going on right outside of Folsom is not just the typical Dead parking lot fare, but a lot of temporarily hockey crazed people as well. It's a nice intersection. Yeah, it's a fun time here in Colorado this weekend. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we do make note of the overlap of Deadheads and sports fans pretty frequently here. Not the least of them, and maybe among the most of them, Bob Weir. And we noted the other night that Bobby ended the first set just in time to catch the last 5 minutes of the Celtics Warriors game during the show at Shoreline. And I don't entirely believe that was coincidence.
No, I believe that is a well orchestrated plan. I've been there.
Right, since Bobby controls the tempos, he gets to pick that one too.
Hurry it up, boys! We're going to catch the last couple of minutes of the game.
Oh yeah, no, I've orchestrated that over the years. It kind of brings to mind, David, a bit of a sidebar. You and I have talked about it over the years, just the way the shows are timed out. For us specifically here in Colorado, when I was writing for the Denver Post, back when newspapers meant something. I know that's an arcane thought right now, but the idea of deadlines. I used to review concerts pretty much for 70% of my job in the 80s heyday. And the Dead really brought that to a head in terms of the enforced deadlines. The paper always, we're talking about the most conservative bastion of the media back then, a daily newspaper, right? Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Well, you can't write about 2 out of the 3, but, knock yourself out. So, but they would always have me file my review by 10 o'clock. and most shows were, only halfway over by the time I had to start writing. And that was okay for 99% of them, where it's just the circus coming to town and they're doing the same set list. And it's easy to at least extrapolate what's salient. But the Dead, you guys know, sometimes they don't even catch fire until the last 20 minutes back in the day, right? And it always irked me because they didn't make the baseball writers review games in the seventh inning, or a football game after the third quarter. But rock and roll, we were the stepchild, and go ahead, no one really cares. But the Dead brought it to a head. I was able to say, look, this is not the absolute you think it is. Help me out, and managed to either get the deadline extended or, heaven forbid, they give me a day to write it, the next morning at sleep, that it runs just another day late. I guess that took the news out.
I do remember being with you one time at McNichols Arena when you had to go up to the press deck and file during the set break. That was must have been the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah, it was not good. You want to embarrass me, Dave? You want to talk about the
no,
the parking lot story, the sign?
No, you can go ahead and tell it on yourself.
Wait, yeah, no, you put you put it out there. I think that's we can't turn that opportunity down now.
Well, I think David has to embellish, but
no, I'll tell it on him because it was pretty funny.
Good.
He as part of his description of the local color, he thought he saw somebody offering to trade food as in the form of vegetarian, fake meat tempeh for I don't know, something else. And it turned out it was actually somebody trying to trade tickets for Tempe, Arizona for something else. So I got to bust G's chops for that.
Talk about an honest mistake. Come on.
Right.
Or a slightly altered one, I guess, to be more accurate.
We get fooled by those little homophones all the time.
That's it.
I'll tell another G Brown story. We had the greatest time. We went together on a press junket in November of 1982 to the Jamaica World Music Festival. I was the senior editor of Record Magazine, and G was the Denver Post guy, and it was produced by Barry Fay, who was his hometown promoter. And they put us up. Remember the Trial Golf and Country Club, man? It was like it had been a plantation 100 years earlier on the side of a mountain overlooking the Caribbean there, and that's where they put all of us on the press junket, and all the musicians had to stay in the crappy flight crew hotel over by the gig. So we just had the time of our lives, and everything ran really late, so we didn't bother sleeping.
They thought they were punishing us. Who should we stick 6 miles off site, out of the press, media.
It had a swim-up bar.
Yeah, first and only. And that show was such a boondoggle in the first place, right? I mean, putting on a major festival in a third world country where the ticket price was more than the gross national product. I mean, it was fraught with production elements. The Dead was there. I mean, that was one of the highlights. They headlined one of the 3 nights. But there is a book on that one, David. I don't know if you've ever thought about that, but wow.
Oh, God, no. I wouldn't want to have to write that story. I did a lot of journalism around the first US Festival, which was a boondoggle of a whole different kind. That was a lot of fun. I didn't we do that one together too?
Yes.
Because Michael Jensen was the king of publicity, and we were his pal. So I got a helicopter ride at the US Festival.
I got one too. I don't think we were on the same flight because
No,
they were
I don't think so.
a couple out. But we're in the flight and we're talking up the pilot a little bit. He's telling us about what's going on, and he lets on that his license has been suspended. This is the first time he's up in the air for in a couple of months. Saying, well, what happened to your license? It was Dorsey Wingo the name you wouldn't remember unless I tell you he was the guy who decapitated Vic Morrow, the actor on the set of the
Oh,
Twilight Zone movie. Just a couple months before, we're up in the air with a six pack with Dorsey Wingo going, ah! It was
Who was drinking the beers?
oh God.
Was he drinking?
No. Me and my buddies, but yeah, it's just interesting to have the pilot full disclosure in mid-flight.
Wow.
Oh God.
So, G, tell us a little more about the Colorado Music Experience. What some of its most attractive features are, what people might want to check out there the most.
Well, we've got a lot of Dead-centric material that I'm fiercely proud of. And again, props to my dear friend David for helping assemble a lot of this. We've got a mini documentary. It's about 20 minutes of duration, but the Dead's entire arc in Colorado. David helped track down original music from each performance, starting with what you alluded to, Gary, back to that Summer Love stuff and the free show in City Park, but also the day before a show at the Family Dog, Colorado's ancillary from Chet Helms's place in San Francisco. And then on and on. The Folsom show in 72 is about number 4 in the chronology, and it takes it all the way up to the McNichols Arena shows in 1995. So that's a very, very popular thing. We've got a lot of the, is progeny the right word for Fish and Widespread Panic and other bands of that ilk? Out here in Colorado, we're kind of jam band central in a lot of ways. So it's nice to have information about not only our local boys, String Cheese Incident, Leftover Salmon, Yonder Mountain String Band, acts of that ilk, but also Panic and Fish. So those things are great. We're always scrambling. One thing that I'm very proud of, this year we have figured out a way to post audio content, tracks from classic venues or in-studio performances at now defunct radio stations, managed to track down these archival recordings, and that's fun. Dave, you know the drill. Instead of writing about music, it's kind of nice to just play once in a while to prove your point. So that part's good. So
Yeah, that's good. That's great.
You guys have been such a fantastic support. We've been doing it for 3 or 4 years, and thank you again. It's meant a ton, and people are ape crazy about it, if I say so myself. So very gratifying.
Talk a little bit about the series of books that you've been doing. You put out a book with each one with a year's worth of everything that happened in the music business. They're like giant, dense volumes of everything. They're super cool.
Well, thanks, David. The series is called On Record, and it's specific, as it's turned out, about the era of hard goods. I didn't really have that in mind as I was doing it. This is every year. I have the ambition of doing this as a series covering 1978 to 1998. Got the first 3 volumes out for 1978, 84, and 91. And it's basically the year in releases, album or CD releases in those years, predicated on the archival photography that I curated and the interviews I did. I remember all the fun we had, Dave, but it turns out I worked pretty hard. I did 3,248 interviews in my 26
wow.
years. And did
that's a lot.
You know, well, it's interesting covering it like a beat. That was the gift of being with the newspaper and covering everything, not just what I wanted to write about or had been assigned. Just pretty much feeding the machine. And I own all that stuff, as it turns out, and that photography is one of a kind archive. So laying it out there, and I'm fiercely proud of it. It's won a lot of awards. They're way more beautiful than I ever anticipated with the design and the editing.
And this is something important. This G's achievement here vindicates every pack rat Whoever got yelled at for keeping too much shit around the house. Because G kept every press kit that came across his desk, and they're all in these file cabinets, so he had the material to do this exhaustively for every year. He kept it all, and now it turns out he was right to keep it all.
Oh, I'm so
Well,
glad to hear that, because I'm in the process of emptying out my house, and when I feel guilty about parting with things, I'll remember G as an example.
no, the gist of it is to share it. That's all I'm trying to do. We're publishing it through our nonprofit. And to your point, David, St. Bridget sends her love, by the way. she's
Right
she's the
back
one you
at
should
you,
be
man.
interviewing
She's
about that stuff.
Fantastic. Well, I am told the band is starting to walk back toward the stage. We still have a few minutes, I think, but just by way of winding this down, any special projects in the offing right now, G, with Colorado Music Experience, or anything else?
Oh, I think we've covered it. This book series in particular is pretty ambitious. If I can pull it off, we've got these first 3 volumes out, but ostensibly, I've got the resources to do 21 volumes, and I'm writing number 14 right now, and we'll see if I can get it to the finish line. So, yeah, that's enough. It is fun. I mean, it's a ton of work, but what else would I be doing except bugging you guys? So,
Feel free to bug anytime.
Well,
all right.
I also just want to point out that one of the high points of my music journalism career was the day that you and I interviewed Bob and Doug McKenzie together.
we had our time. It's the wigs, right? That was they had the best wig person in the business.
That's true.
Well,
You know, we're talking about books, Dave, you've got one in the hopper, right?
I do. I have a book of my Grateful Dead photos that's going to come out in the fall called Improvised Lives, 1972 to 1985. Thank you for giving me an excuse to mention that.
Well, the excuse is for me to tell you about the research I was doing on a retail level. I was in a bookstore this morning, and a gentleman approached the female clerk. He said, "Miss, I'm looking for that new book about men with small penises. I'm sorry, I can't remember the title." He said, "I don't think it's in yet." He said, "That's it. Can you order it for me?" Thank you. Thank you.
he's here all week, folks. Oh, man.
And that right there is why back in the day, Sue Satriano's Rolodex had him listed as Dial-A-Joke.
Well, I don't think we can top that. So, G, we'll just thank you for
the
being here.
Always good to see you.
Great to talk to you.
Thanks, man.
Take care.
Much love.
And I guess we're going to go back to the stage. Remind you to keep watching on nugs.net. We'll be here every night. Check out nugs.net for all the other great music you can get there. And we're going to see you again tomorrow night from Boulder with a different guest. David Lemieux is joining us. So we're looking forward to that.
Right.
And thanks for watching tonight. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you.